The second artistic movement that we have to talk about that came about during World War One is Dada. Dada is nonsensical art, anti-art. Um, and it was nonsensical. It didn't make sense because it reflected what the artists perceived that was going on in the world. Nonsense, ridiculousness, all of this influenced by the absurdity of World War One. The leader of the one of the leaders of the Dada movement was a man by the name of Tristan Tzara, Tzara. The Dadaists, the movement began in Germany, but quickly relocated to Switzerland. And one of the locations was the Café Voltaire that was frequented and visited by Dadaists. Dada can be seen in visual art mostly, the work of Max Ernst, and many others. But examples, so that we have a reference of what Dada might be, consider kinetic sculpture, moving sculpture. You've probably seen sculptures out somewhere that actually move when the wind blows. So this is a metal sculpture that moves. Or there are, some of you may have seen the cube that is in Astor Place in New York City, down in the East Village. It's a cube that spectators can actually move. They can push it so that it changes its orientation on its base. Other examples of Dada visual art, collage, the layering of different elements to create an image, found objects to create an image, enhancing the surface with paint. You add different elements onto this surface, creating the collage. In theater, in performance, an example of Dada is something called a noise poem. And it is the assembling of different sounds. And these are not necessarily pleasant sounds. A car backfiring, a gunshot, the sound of machinery, tires screeching, and they're all assembled and played over so that it is really noise. Noise music is another name for it. They practiced what is called a chance poem, where, and sometimes the audience is asked to participate in this. They will ask the members of the audience to write words on small bits of paper, fold them up, put them in a hat, and then you have the participants, the performers, pull one by one out of the hat and read them once. And this is a chance poem. The result is completely and totally random and by chance. So these are examples of performance art in Dada. The third movement that came about during this period between 1910 and 1920 is Expressionism. This movement began in Germany, and the idea behind Expressionism is, in theater, seen not only in the play itself and the plot or the structure of the play itself, but also how the play is presented on stage. Um, Somewhat like symbolism, expressionist scenery used the set to express an aspect of the theme of the play. For example, if a character, the main character, in some way or another is being pressured or controlled or dominated by society. A lot of the expressionist playwrights uh, explored the idea of society controlling the individual. We are being consumed by society because at this time, um, um, our society was industrialized, especially in Europe. People were working in factories, making mass production. All of a sudden, the artisan was long gone. It was about producing things in mass quantities so that the individual was no longer creating. They were just assisting the production. And in doing that, you see man becoming less vital in society and being controlled by what's outside, being actually controlled by society. So getting back to how scenery reflected that, say we take the idea of the single solitary man um, being dominated by society. The set might reflect that by showing the walls of buildings or actually buildings themselves in a large city caving in towards center. That means that the player, the actor, the character, we see that the impact is that society is controlling and caving in on this character. The use of color um, was also evident in scenic design to express this as well. Dark colors, grays, red, green, colors that are associated with qualities. Green for envy, red for anger or passion or lust. Um, they were used in that way. Um, your textbook highlights one expressionist playwright or a playwright from this period, and it is Eugene O'Neill. If you remember when we were talking about melodrama and the popular melodrama The Count of Monte Cristo, we talked about James O'Neill, the Irish actor who made his career by performing that one character, the Count of Monte Cristo. Performed it for almost 40 years. But Eugene O'Neill, in his own right, was an amazing playwright from the early 20th century. The interesting thing about Eugene O'Neill was that his plays were not released to the public until after he died. He made that rule with the people who handled his estate that his plays would not be released until after he died. So he wrote a lot of these plays early on in his career. The play that your text refers to is a play called The Hairy Ape. I've not been able to find a production of it, but I will continue looking for it. All right, so those three movements, Futurism, Dada, and Expressionism, the three movements that came about as a result of World War I, but between the years of 1910 and 1920. I'll be back.